Hi, I'm Kedar, and you're watching rptv. Welcome to the March 13, 2025 meeting of the Regent Park Social Development Plan Planning Committee. The purpose of this meeting is to make recommendations to the SDP Stakeholders Table, focusing on strategic direction, action priorities, and ensuring alignment between all working groups. This meeting covers key topics, including updates from the Stakeholders Table, discussions on event planning, and critical decisions regarding the city's new honorarium process. Join us as we hear from community leaders and stakeholders working to drive positive change in Regent Park.
We're now going to be talking about the Stakeholder Table meeting. So we'll go through a quick update. I'm going to ask Brandy to speak to some of these points. And there is a decision that we need to consider based on consensus or through our terms of reference related to the date that we'll be discussing later on. So this is going to be about a half an hour of our meeting. So it's slated from 5:25 to 5:50. And then we have a discussion on should the planning committee meeting be held on March 27th. And then we're going to discuss our meeting with the city about the new honorarium process. So it's going to be some suggestions that Brandy's going to bring forward. And then we're going to talk about a response. So that's our agenda for today. So I'm just going to ask if anyone has any changes to the agenda. And lastly, sorry, we'll introduce our the SDP, so the RPNA placement students for the SDP. I know Sophia is one of them. So Sophia, you could probably, at that opportunity, just talk about the work you will be doing to support the SDP. And the experiences so far. So that will be the last part of the meeting. Any opposition? Okay, seeing none, the agenda has been approved. We're now going to go to the first update. Over to you, Brandy.
Yep. Okay, thank you very much. So under the stakeholders table meeting, we do have some, I guess, changes that are coming along, but to move forward the planning. So a few members of the planning committee have gotten together to spend some time to come up with an interesting way to make sure that the stakeholders meeting is interactive and engaging. So what we're doing is right now we're going to be reaching out to the designates that have been selected to take on the responsibility to reach out to the co-chairs or to the members of the working groups to identify the 8 questions for the game. This will be a reminder will be sent out via email to the co-leads and the designates that have to accept responsibility to obtain the 8 questions, and they'll be submitted back to myself, and then that information will be shared to the planning committee. We're also going to be reminding them of the stakeholders content. We do have an upcoming meeting on Tuesday, and that's where we will be not finalizing, but just going over the content in more detail, but reminding that their information should be included, or they should at least know and identify what content will be provided. We also have to remind the co-chairs and the working groups that content will be utilized in a presentation that will be delivered to all stakeholder attendees so that they are aware of the working priorities, the milestones, the key deliverables, and also the successes, because the 4 working groups and part of the SDP do a lot of great work. And we want to showcase that as well. So that will be done in a presentation, and all of these reminders go out today. The last item that we do have on this agenda is the event date change proposal of April 10th, 2025. In this part, so there has been some consideration. I believe one member of the planning committee also suggested that we observe Ramadan, and that having the meeting on March 27th is during the Ramadan, and that a potential date change of April 10th would suffice. and would allow for time for anyone of the Muslim faith to enjoy their celebration and not have to, not have to miss out on the stakeholders meeting and things like that. So that has been a potential date change request, and that is something that we wanted to give time to debate. Now, I do see that there should the planning committee be held on March 27th. That, to explain that next point, that goes in to the fact that we were originally going to have the meeting, the stakeholders table meeting on March 27th. But now we've proposed a date change to April the 3rd. But again, there has been reason for a request of the change to April 10th. So if I can just, if anybody needs any further clarification on that, please ask me now. If not, I would like to propose this back to the group with the event date change to April 10th, because currently we have the booking secured as April 3rd. So if there's anyone who would like to speak to this, I would like to give everyone an opportunity. Please raise your hand and we can give everybody an opportunity to speak to this item. Excuse me. Does anybody? Okay, Adonis raised his hand. Go ahead, Adonis.
Yeah, I'm sorry, but I just remembered that we have Focus has the event on April the 10th, and it's we plan on the 3rd floor of Daniel Spectrum. So what that means is that if it's a hybrid meeting, we can't do it. We can only do in terms of filming in camera. An in-person meeting. We can't do a hybrid. We won't have our staff there. Our staff will be upstairs.
Oh.
On April 10th.
Okay. Okay.
So it will have to be an in-person meeting for April the 10th for the stakeholders table.
If
and
we
folks
use
won't be
that
there.
date. Okay. And that's saying if we use that date, right, Adonis?
Yes.
Yeah.
That's the only issue.
Okay. Dini, are you finished speaking to
Sorry,
this, Adonis?
folks.
Yeah.
Was disconnected for a weird reason. Adonis, you want to go next?
No, it's Dini's turn.
Dini's turn. Okay.
Yeah, no, Adonis, don't you guys do more than just the hybrid issue? Don't you run the sound and stuff too? Set up the screen and all of this stuff besides just.
Yeah, that's
hybrid?
right. We will have the audio equipment as well. And so it may be.
Because I can't, that size, a room like that with no sound is impossible.
Yeah, we'll definitely be using the audio equipment upstairs. I'm sorry, folks.
So the 10th.
The last minute change got me too.
Okay. Well, Reed, while you were unavailable, we spoke to the issue of the event date change to April 10th, which now we realize that Adonis and Focus Media have an event on the 3rd floor of Daniel Spectrum, so we would not be able to use that date.
Yeah, we can. Yeah, we can do that.
Okay. All right.
So April 3rd is what we currently booked. That's correct.
April 3rd is where our booking is right
We
now.
need to stick to that then. Or we're going to be pushing it into May, and it's going to be too late. Okay, point taken. I think that makes things easier, so we don't need to make a decision on that.
Yep.
Um,
Gail raised her hand. Sorry,
Gail?
were you speaking to it?
Yeah, maybe we can think about what would be the challenge with moving to an even further date. I think you have to think about, or do you have everything ready, or because the reason you're making this, considering the change, is because you are thinking about folks who have signaled that they're fasting and therefore not participating. So if you're okay with eliminating or excluding those folks, not excluding, but saying, well, it's okay, they may or may not come, and you're already, then yes, you proceed with current date. So that was the reason for making the change. So are we saying, oh, well, forget that reason, we'll just go back, or are you indeed trying to solve for your original reason? Because then you start looking at the next possible option, right? And so what would be the challenge with that next possible option? If, again, your solve is for the fact that you wanted to include people who may be fasting and therefore may not come. If that's not your reason, then just go back to what you had before. But if you're indeed trying to solve
think
for the
our-
challenge. Like we seem to take up a challenge and then decide, oh, it's too hard, so we won't bother to solve for it. Just follow through.
Our challenge is always to be as inclusive as possible, having childcare, make the appropriate bookings, make sure that people can participate meaningfully. And April 3rd does not conflict with the Ramadan schedule because it ends.
Although that wasn't the issue, Waleed.
Yeah, Jeannie, go ahead. You can explain the issue.
The issue was Joel said that they weren't able to work on their
The reports.
presentation and questions because their co-chairs are off for Ramadan and wouldn't be back until after.
So that's why we have to.
So it was preparing for the stakeholders table for that work group that had the challenge sat, which is why we were moving the date.
So can we then move it later? Maybe that's a way forward. Later in April or in May. But we need to make this decision today because it's already been booked for April 3rd, Daniel Spectrum. So any suggestions? We're trying to test for consensus on what to do next. Adonis.
Okay, what's the 10th is? So the 10th.
He said they can't do the 10th. So the 17th.
The next option is the 17th.
It's a Thursday, but is that enough time?
Well, the 10th was okay.
Okay, yeah, so just move it a week. Adonis, are you okay with
1 week? It's the 17th you're looking at.
Yeah.
And I don't think that runs into anything. Let me see.
Yeah.
Does it run into Easter or something? Maybe that's the issue.
Yeah. Is the 17th a good date? Can we just double check
I don't know.
people's
Let me
schedule?
see.
Well, the most important date is whether it's not, but it's if
It's available.
it's available. That's the most important date.
Yeah.
Other than that, we're fine with that.
Yeah, because Good Friday is the 18th, so the 17th still workable.
Oh, wait a minute. Didn't Sarah Jane say something about Passover?
Correct.
When is Passover?
Oops, where's those notes?
Starts on the. I have to go back to my notes. Brandy, do you remember the date?
I believe it was from, was it? I know Ash
April
Wednesday
12th.
the 5th. So
April 12th to Sunday, April 20th.
correct. Yes.
Okay,
April,
then the next
So we're good.
possible date is the 24th.
24th, yeah.
We're still in April.
Okay, let's do that. And that actually will probably give folks enough time when they're back to be ready for that meeting. So let's, Brandy, I'm putting it on the chat. Thursday, April 24th is the date that we hope you could book it with Fareed.
sorry, you said Thursday.
The 24th, April 24th.
Perfect. Thursday, April 24th. Okay. Thank you.
From 5 p.m., 8 p.m. But we're going to officially start 5:30, but we need time for setup. Half an hour enough time, Adonis, or you need more time for setup?
We'll be fine for setup. I guess the question is, what if that date's not available? Do we have an alternative date? Or do you want to return to April the 3rd? I don't know, but do you have an alternative? Shouldn't we have an alternative date just in case?
Yeah, I think that's wise. And the only other date is basically May. It's going to be in May, unless we do it on the 30th. Unless we do it on April 30th.
April 3rd didn't work for community building work group.
Yeah, so we can also propose April 30th, Wednesday. It's a midweek, but we can pull it off on that date if it's available. So
Can we check with Fareed about the 24th now?
Okay, I'm going to check right now. Will you mind, can you facilitate the next part? And I'll try to connect with him right now.
okay, sounds good. So look at both dates, they're in the chat. Okay, we'll move on to the next item. Okay, so did we fill out all the designates for the Jeopardy from all the working groups? I know Joel was one for community building. Elena was for EED. Marlene said she was going to connect with the co-chairs from safety. And then Donis is already good with communication. So I think we've got 3 out of the 4. Marshida, okay. So Marshida is doing communication. So I think we've got most working groups confirmed. The one thing is we need to follow up with Marlene or Hajia and Leonard directly about that. So we need a confirmation for that.
Marlene, she said she was going to do it.
Yeah, so we can either have a report back from Marlene at the next meeting
sorry, Wally, can I interrupt? Sorry for interrupting.
Go ahead.
This is the piece I'm coordinating. So
Okay.
maybe
So I don't
I should
take care of it.
So we're meeting all the questions for all the designates who are gathering questions for Jeopardy is to meet on next Tuesday. We said that we would meet at is it next Tuesday? Sorry.
Yes,
It's every Tuesday. Yeah.
Remind me of the time, Brandy, we said? It's at...
let me double check the time.
And we want each designate to have 8 questions, in which we would select 5 questions.
Okay,
So if
awesome.
you're not able to make that meeting, just send your questions to us or to me.
Okay, so before that's actually a good report back. Thanks so much, Adonis. Sophia, I know you need to leave soon. Is it okay with the rests? Or she's still in the meeting. I think she's already gone. But just want to make sure that she has an opportunity to speak. Okay, she's gone. Okay. Hopefully they'll be back by 6:30. All right, so let's move on to the next item. And it's 5:40.
What time was that meeting on Tuesday?
I don't see a time listed.
So why don't we set that up? Adonis, what do you have in mind?
I thought it was 5 p.m. myself.
5? I guess because I'm going to follow up with Marlene to let her know. So 5 p.m.
5 o'clock is the Employment and Economic Development Monthly Community Meeting. Can you just double check it's not happening? EED?
For next Tuesday? Let me double check.
Just check in with Elena. She'll know.
Yep. Tuesday.
Okay, so if it's there's no conflict, we can have it at 5 o'clock.
Okay, 5 o'clock Tuesday, people.
Okay, I'll let Marlene know.
Okay, I have it noted.
Sounds good. Thank you, Adonis. Okay, let's go back to the other items, Brandy. Yeah, so, okay, so now the next question that we have, because I think we discussed all of these pieces with regards to the co-chairs and working groups and their presentations. I think an email, Brandy, we can work together on this if you want, but just send them an email. Remind them of the stakeholders content meeting. So as soon as we confirm the date, we need to just send out the notice, have it out there in the community and have people RSVP. And someone will show up on the day of, and I think we'll have a good meeting.
Okay.
Nothing else to discuss with regards to this item. We can move to the next item, unless there's something that's missed.
You're cutting out, or you're...
Can you hear me now?
Oh, much better.
Yeah, we can move on to, unless there's questions about this item, we can move on to the next item where we have to discuss whether there's going to be a planning committee meeting on March 27th. So that is basically 2 weeks from now on a Thursday. The issue is that's almost like the end of Ramadan, and I think someone also has a question related to that. So we'll also discuss it. So I just want to ask, does anyone have any questions about the first item? So we can move on to the next item. Are we good?
Yes, we're good.
Good. Okay, let's move on to the next item then.
So what was the decision?
We're going to discuss it now. We're going to discuss it. So the question, my friends, is are we, who's got an issue with the March 27th date? Who wants to speak to this?
I can share the rationale.
Go ahead.
People decided that the 27th for the stakeholders meeting wasn't a good date because it was in the evening and people were breaking their fast. Michael reminded us that that meeting is also a 5 o'clock meeting. So what would be the difference? Therefore, we thought we would bring it forward to see whether or not we should cancel it because it's the same issue. People are breaking their fast and it's a evening meeting.
Yeah, so turnout will be impacted on that date. What do folks think? Should we have a meeting in 2 weeks? So we're basically gonna have to move that meeting from the 27th to the week after. What do folks think? Okay, would like to speak first? Go ahead, Adonis.
Well, if the question is whether we should have that meeting or not have it, I feel that we should, my proposal is we cancel the March 27th meeting and just continue with the schedule after that.
Yeah, because the stakeholders meeting will probably be pushed further.
Yeah.
Okay, that's the rationale. Okay, so there's a recommendation to cancel that meeting. We just move on to the next meeting, the next week's schedule. What do folks think?
Okay.
Yeah, and I think we could also let the co-chairs know. So Brandy,
Whoop.
we should tell folks. I don't think anyone is opposed to that,
Okay.
and I think it's going to be more accommodating instead of us
Okay.
having a worse schedule, right? So
Yep.
it's a good idea. Okay, so we finished this item. We're supposed to end at 6 o'clock. We're 15 minutes ahead of schedule. The next item that we're going to be talking about is the meeting with the city about the new honorarium process. Back to you, Brandy.
Okay, can everybody hear me okay? Okay, so in response to us submitting one of our business case proposals for the 2023 and 2024 payments, we were told that there would be a new process for the 2024 honorarium co-chair payments. I confirmed that this was not including the 2025 year, as there will no longer be 2025. The city's position at this moment, without challenge, is that there will not be the 2025 co-chair payment. So we're talking about 2024, the new process. The city is requesting that us as a planning committee table reach out to the co-chairs. So all the co-leads of all the working groups come together for a meeting date to discuss the new process moving forward. So in that statement, that we did propose a few dates. The first date was Monday, March 17th. Then Elena reminded me that that's St. Patrick's Day. Then we just did try for Wednesday, the 19th, but several co-chairs responded that that date was unavailable. So the final date that we've come up with today was Tuesday, March 18th at 12 p.m. And if that date works for those are here. I did reach out to 2 co-chairs to see if they're available on that date. I did get a call from one of them now. I can always, when we'll have the opportunity to confirm whether they have availability for this date. But since we are here and we do have some co-chairs in this group, does Tuesday, March 18th at 12 p.m. work for you for an hour meeting with the City of Toronto, SDFA, to go over the new process of the co-chair honorarium payments?
We have Adonis first. Go ahead.
I guess my question is why, if this is a new process, why isn't it being discussed with the planning committee? Why is it being discussed with the co-chairs separate from the planning committees?
It's an excellent question, Adonis. I think we need to appreciate that we have our terms of reference to follow. And when city staff make recommendations that violate your terms of reference, I think it's important to follow your terms of reference and remind them of the terms of reference for the SDP. If they want to have a discussion about a process, a new process for the honoraria, they need to explain to the planning committee, because there are co-chairs that are incoming and there may be co-chairs that are outgoing. And at the same time, it's important for transparency for folks to engage in the discussion so we make the best decisions, right? So I think, the meeting time could work, but it could be a meeting that's open to all members of the planning committee and not just the co-chairs, or alternatively, we could just, I'm asking for everyone to speak on this item because it's very important. We could ask the city to just join us at a planning committee to present the process. That's another piece.
Yeah.
So please speak to those specific pieces, because that's going to help us come up with a consensus on how to respond on this item. Go ahead, Michael.
That's what I suggested. And when I previously mentioned it and earlier in this meeting, I had no idea anybody even slightly agreed with that. So obviously I'm in support if there's other people who agree with that. This is also confusing to me as to which year they're actually trying to meet about, because I thought that even for 2024, it wasn't a new process. They just wanted to verify the existing process. So now I'm just confused about what they're actually planning to talk about, whoever it is they talk to.
Yeah, so I think there are a lot of people that share that sentiment, but let's hear from others. Gil?
Yes. So I think there needs to be clarification. I think if it is about what is currently happening, yeah, I think you would have to meet with those co-chairs, right? We had a member of this committee send an email to the city asking to block people from receiving their honoraria. And the city responded by blocking all honorariums. So I think maybe this is their opportunity to explain in a little bit more detail and what their new process will be going forward. However, I think if it relates to 2025, which as far as I understand from the last letter was suspended, but I think if it relates for going forward, and if you're in partnership with the SDP, then you probably should have the conversation at the table. But again, the letter talked about, people, you had comments like, I'm being bullied. So obviously the city's trying to, okay, let me solve for this problem with the group of people that are currently receiving honorarium and so they can understand why we've taken the steps we've taken. That's what I assume they're going to do. But again, if it's about 2025, then I think you have to involve your table. But I think the issue is the letter that was sent and the accusations that were incorrect, right? So how do you move forward with that?
Points taken. Thank you, Gail. Dini, you go next.
Yeah, I was going to say if it was 2025, I'd say, yeah, it's a everybody conversation. But for 2024, I can see the sense of speaking to the people who had served in 2024 and would be impacted by any changes to the honoraria.
Okay, sounds good. So I think we need to be careful about the scope. So Brandy, please correct any misinterpretation, but did they say it's going to be about 2025 or is it just going to be years prior?
Years prior.
So not 2025.
Correct. That's how I received the information. But if you want, I can also double check. But that's how I heard it, and that's what I believe it to be. But I can always ask for an email response so that everybody can receive that response. But yes, correct.
Yeah, I think we need to validate that that's what is going to be discussed, because if they're honoring all the years apart from 2025, if they are going to talk about 2025, there's consensus. It needs to be back to the planning committee. Okay. That discussion needs to happen here. That's what I'm hearing. I'm going to have Miguel go next, but there seems to be consensus being built on that point. But I think it's very important for us to have a space by which we can discuss with the city as to why they made a decision not to have honoraria for 2025. Like, what's the reason, right? The decisions are made by planning committee or the stakeholders table. You know, for a funder to withdraw funding without city council approval or direction, there needs to be a check and balance for that. So I think that needs to come out. So we need to have that conversation right away, whether it's going to be just the co-chairs or if we decide it's going to be the planning committee. We're having Miguel next and then Levy. So Levy, I know you want to speak next. So is that okay if Miguel goes first?
Yes, no problem, Miguel.
Thank you, Levy. Okay, Miguel.
Yes. Hi, everybody. If you compare the SDP refresh versus the holding of payment for co-chairs, is that there is a name attached to it. Comparing the SDP refresh scandal, there is no names assigned to any of the accusations that were made to the SDFA, and the reason for holding back money that created chaos in this community. So that is one difference this year. There is a name attached to it. Second, accusations that are being discarded as unfounded. No. We have a TCSC staff coming to the Regent Park Safety Network last month, saying that from now on, all the TCHC co-chairs will have to be tenant elected representatives. So that is the bullying I'm talking about. Thank you.
Yeah, point taken. I think you've raised it many times, Miguel. Okay, so let's.
So my turn now?
Yeah, Levy, go ahead. And then.
From what I recall from the letter that I was sent, correct me guys, I'm bad at it, but they said that there was some bullying happening and there was some conflicts going on. Mm-hmm. And they wanted us to come up with, I think they said that, some kind of conflict resolution process, right? Because
culture.
Yeah, and they said there's a culture of, it was all clear in the book thing. It says there's a culture of these co-chairs or some people that are running it or some kind of thing like that, right? Happening. Mm-hmm. And they wanted those things to be something to be presented around those things. So maybe we need to read the letter again, and see what it says. Because I'm sure it said that we needed to get a conflict resolution process.
Yeah, a decision was made by this body to ask the Shaping SDP Culture group to come up with basically a way forward by inviting the city to that working group, that space, because we're not talking about implementing these documents, right? So I think there is an appetite to engage with the city in that regard. is to make sure that they're informed and also engaging us in a discussion on what the best practices are. But this is stuff that we've uncovered through our own community-led process on how to address conflict, right? And then the other piece.
So you have a process in place already?
We have a process in place.
Okay.
It's just now the implementation, right? So we did discuss this in detail at our last meeting. So I think what we're trying to do right now is also come up with a way forward on how do we meet with our city representatives. Is it at this planning committee or is it at a separate meeting? And Brandy's already offered a meeting date and time, Tuesday next week at 12 o'clock. And Brandy, please correct me if I'm wrong, but on the 18th, Leonard, Haja, myself, Elena, I think most of the representatives of the 4 working groups are going to be there, right?
Correct.
So there is that potential of consensus on the 18th. We can make that happen. Or do we want to invite them back to the table? And what we've heard so far is that if it's not related to the 2025 honoraria, which is still questionable, it shouldn't have to be the planning committee. But if it is, then it needs to come back to the planning committee. So I would like to hear some final thoughts. We still have time before we move on to the next item. So I see Dini, then Miguel. So please share your perspective. Dini, go ahead.
Yeah, just for Levi's benefit, I just wanted to share with her that the Shaping Culture subcommittee did actually develop a conflict resolution and mediation process. So we do have one, but I don't think the city is aware. So Joel will be extending an invitation for city staff to come back to the Shaping Culture group because they were with us at one point, but they had stopped coming. So they will be invited back. But we do have a process.
Excellent. Thank you, Dini. We'll go now to Miguel.
So again, there are 2 things mentioned in the letter. I'm going to repeat again what I said before. There was a TCAC staff that came to the Regent Park Safety Network saying that in her view that the TCAC co-chairs should be elected tenant reps. That's number 1. The other thing that was also clarified that the Regent Park Safety Network were aware about the election process from November. December, I introduced my name to run for TCAC co-chairs. I was not given attention to that. There was no discussion about the elections. December came about, same story, no interest in running the election. January comes, the same story, the reluctance to go on with the process, our terms of reference. February comes, and that's when I decided to put my name on a complaint letter because there were several months, several meetings that they were just putting this item on the sidelines, not to be discussed, or to just comply with the request of TCAC, which is clearly recorded and transcribed at the meeting, which says they wish to see only tenant elected representatives to serve as co-chairs of the Regent Park Safety Network meeting. That's all I had to say. Thank you.
Okay, so I'm going to test for consensus. Do we want to move forward with a meeting on Tuesday at 12, just focused on what was committed by the city, and then invite the city to the next planning committee to speak to the decision about the 2025 year? I'm going to test for consensus. Thumbs up or
Hello?
unmute yourself and say yes. Go ahead, Michael.
So what happens if we agree to that, and then at this meeting on the 18th that we'd agreed doesn't have to involve the planning committee, the city starts talking about the 2025 year?
Good point. Good point. Well, we'll require whoever's at that meeting to manage those expectations, and I can volunteer to do that as the co-chair. Like, listen, I just want to let you know we've agreed to meet, but the planning committee has reservations. They don't want any discussions related to the 2025 budget at this meeting. We will only focus in 2024 and previous years, and the reasons for the delay and how we can move forward. And that will basically be the focus. So we can set parameters, and if they say that they want to speak about 2025, we're going to ask them to come to the planning committee to address that, because but we have to follow our terms of reference, and the planning committee has a specific role. So we can't neglect that. What do folks think? Are we in agreement that we can move forward with the 18th next week and then invite the city to talk about 2025 at the next planning committee meeting? And then we'll have something to report back at stakeholders, hopefully. Okay, I'm going to test for consensus. Thumbs up, thumbs down, thumbs up if you're okay with that proposal. Yeah, okay. I see Miguel up, I see Levy, okay. Donis. There seems to be support. Dini. Go ahead, Dini, speak. Speak your mind.
Thank you. I just wanted to say one thing, and it's it may be a nothing point, but because again, I always go back to people who are directly impacted. I think if there was going to be a change of process for 2024, it should have been told to people or discussed with people at the end of 2023, so people could have made an informed choice about whether or not they serve.
Yeah.
Just a point. So when
we'll
you
raise
have
that
your
point.
meeting, it just would be a kindness, I think, a courtesy that people could have decided. Not that they probably would have made any different choice, but to me, it just makes sense that you should be able to make an informed choice and serve for a year and then have a discussion about it. It's just, they've already served.
Yeah, no, the point of fairness is a simple point to make, and I think we'll make that clearly on the 18th. But if they do speak to 2025, we have everyone's go ahead that will bring them back to planning committee. So we've got Adonis and then Gail, and then I just want to remind folks, we need to spend some time on the response, which is the next item. Okay, Adonis, go next.
Yeah, just a quick amendment. I think we should reach out to the co-chairs who are expecting honorariums for 2024 to be at that meeting. Make sure they're at that meeting. So that would be important, I think.
Yeah, so we've already got that covered. Brandy, please confirm. Leonard, Hadja, Elena, myself already confirmed, right?
Shada.
Hajia hasn't confirmed as yet. I'm expecting a call around 7:30 p.m.
Okay. And Rashida?
Rashida, I haven't got a response from Rashida as yet. There's about three outstanding that I need to connect with, but I'll be making those calls and text messages this evening. I'm actually doing it now on the work phone.
Okay. Thank you, Brandy. Okay, so I think we have a game plan to get there. And so I think we're gonna meet in good faith and manage expectations. So Dini, I think you went, and Adonis, you went. So we've got Gail next. And I see Adonis's hand again. Gail, if you'd like to go next, please go next. And if you have an audio issues, I'll go to Adonis and then get back to you. So let me know.
Yeah, I think we still haven't dealt with Miguel's issue. And my understanding of it is that the upcoming elections that TCHC Safety is having is only for, they think it's only should be for TCHC resident co-chairs, not market co-chairs. Is that the issue?
So it's again, Adonis, the issue is about fairness, right? So Miguel has said this over and over again at several meetings. I don't want to rehash it again, but he's been disqualified as a candidate.
On what basis? On what basis?
Because they basically removed him as a tenant rep.
No, that has nothing to do with it. He doesn't have to be a tenant rep to be a co-chair of the working group. The real issue is that they don't understand that distinction, that he can still be a co-chair of the working group. That's
I agree with you, Michael, because they haven't read the terms. They haven't read the terms of reference, and at the end of the day, this is about fairness.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah, but we are working on that to get them to understand that he can still be a co-chair of the working group.
Yeah, they need to understand the terms of reference. This issue, again, boils down to fairness. What we are going into this meeting is with the terms of reference. And if you want to change the terms of reference, you need to come through the process by which that is approved and take it to the stakeholders table, or now it's the planning committee. But you cannot pick and choose when to apply your own rules and when to listen. You know, when we were told there was a new process, and we did our very best to submit the business plans back in March of 2024. We acted in the best interest of the SDP to make sure that the city had all the information. It's not our fault that they are now responding in what? When is it? March 2025? A year later? So they need to be difficult conversation had with the city as to why that is fair.
I guess my question isn't about the city. My question is, and we know what safety, according to Miguel, says is unfair. The question is, what are we doing about it? Have we met with Leonard and the TCHC or involved in the safety to make them understand
we were making progress. What happened was we basically had an in-person hybrid meeting where there was discussions at the end with Leonard that, you know, they now have an appreciation of the terms of reference. So we're working together to make sure that we all follow the terms of reference. And that's how we reach to a solution, is making sure we abide by the terms of reference collectively.
But my understanding is they're having elections soon. So has this issue been resolved?
No.
If they hold the election, it resolves it. And we think that's why we think it's close to resolution.
Yeah.
Okay, I think that's helpful for Miguel to know that we are working on it, that we heard his complaint, that we are working on this issue. And, you know, again, it's something to let the city know that we're working on this issue. So that will.
Yeah, and we're gonna bring that up.
We don't know what the issue is, but I hear you.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. We're gonna bring it up at the meeting. Yeah, when we've had a discussion about this at the planning committee. So, Miguel, please let us know if we're all on the same page, right? If that's your understanding.
I'm listening to the conversation, Walid, and I concluded my statement at the last Regent Park Safety Network that this committee is not entity of the TCAC. We are totally independent and autonomous, and we don't. There is no room for corporate policies. So if they want to follow the corporate policies, it only applies for the tenant council and those who sign the code of conduct. In my case, I never signed a code of conduct, and I was removed as a tenant rep. I'm still fighting for that, and I will fight that in court. because my rights were infringed. I never offered to resign. I never asked to be removed. However, they went ahead and removed me as a elected tenant rep, which is a black eye on their tenant engagement system. That's my final thought. Thank you.
I know, Miguel. I understand where you're coming from. Okay, so yeah, we'll set expectations for that meeting. I think we've built consensus. I'm just gonna ask Gail if you want to speak next before we move
I'm
on to
just
the
trying
next
to
point.
understand what is the consensus, and then I think if is it co-chairs or co-chairs are now assigning other people to go. That's what I'm
No,
saying, because you said you're going, so you must be representing a group. Yeah, so I think that's important, because then, you know, other people can say, well, I want to go, right? So not sure how that came about, but if they say co-chairs it is. And I would agree with Adonis. I mean, this was on its way to resolution, right? Again, it's not fair if we as a collective make a decision and then somebody goes out and emails the city and says all kinds of things. This would not have been come up if that had not happened, right? I mean, they also sent an email, and the date they had was April 18th for the elections. And then at the meeting, they talked about, you know, it's Ramadan and that's why. So if they talk about Ramadan and they're making that decision based on that, is there a challenge with that? Because we've also done the same thing. They did say that at the meeting, right? And it is wise to say, okay, you can also complain and then not have to say, oh, and by the way, don't give them any money, right? Because then it makes it seem as though, is this really about the money or the work, right? And then as well, Michael was at the last meeting and he explained, because Felicia obviously didn't understand. So he explained the two different as well, right? And he was willing to meet and say, let me help you understand. And they were okay with that, right? And then we get this email coming out. So now the city's like, oh my gosh, what's going on? Because we've put accusations in there. So when you as a member write that email, you're saying the whole committee is saying that. Well, the whole committee agreed, yes, okay, great, you're going to do it in April. We don't like the delay, but we understand your why. Are we a collective or not? So if you send an email outside of what we agree on, then we're not behaving like a collective. And she was so confused, which was unfortunate, but she's kind of coming into a position where obviously they didn't give her any orientation into that position, right? And then you have your personal, maybe then concerns as well, right? With TCHC. And so that may cloud what we are trying to attempt. Right? We have to separate these things. I get the challenge with TCHC, but that TCA doesn't even come to the planning meetings. Like, we shouldn't involve our personal housing issues with what is going on at this table.
I have to say that. No, wait a minute. I'm not gonna allow this individual to insult me. Listen, unless I put my name, but the people who put the SDP refresh on hold, we know who did it. Unless you're a coward, you should have put your name on it.
So I just want to say one thing. I think there's a lot of things that happened in the past, and I think we need to start thinking about how we can move forward together. It's a very important year, my friends. It's the last year of resourcing of the SDP. We've had the funding committee meet. We've had a lot of work being done to train residents on deputing. And we've had folks who were not part of the SDP rejoin the SDP because they care about this community. So I want us to start thinking about how can we work together to make sure that all our contributions, despite our differences, despite whatever challenges are in between us, that we actually leave this community in the best shape for success. Right now, there are tariffs being imposed by our neighbor in the south. It's going to be economic downturn. If we don't set up residents for success, then we will go back to square one. And the other thing I want to say is, I just want to let you folks know that TCHC is coming back to the table. But we need to start talking about how we bring people together to push for community decision making. We do have a terms of reference to follow. I think that's the point we're going to be emphasizing. And Miguel I know you feel excluded by the remarks you've heard, but there's a difference about what people say and what people are going to do. And we're going to address that issue collectively by informing the city of what our terms of reference say about this issue. So I don't think we should be worried about how we're going to move forward. We will be inviting the city representatives to speak to the 2025 year as well, because that's another issue as well. Enforceability of the terms of reference for elections is something we're going to talk about. And at the same time, we want to make sure that this process works, because yeah, sometimes there will be conflict. It's how we deal with conflict. Okay, we got Jeannie and then Brandy. Jeannie, go ahead.
Yeah, just a guide. Am I muted? Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Just a guideline reminder, please no name calling.
That's where I was going to go. I was just going to ask. If I could just follow up on what Deanie said. One of the challenges that I see us having moving forward to build, to reorganize us as an inclusive organization, one that we're all collectively feel protected. I also notice that a lot of us will say, that we don't feel safe. A lot of us will say that we are bullied, and at times, and I'm not saying that hasn't happened, but if we use words that are, just not nice words to each other, we're setting the tone for more toxicity within the community. And as the admin coordinator, it is my job to make sure, that these meetings are recorded, and at times the city does request to review the video, as well as all residents in the community. So if we can please remember to remain, I understand that we're all passionate and I respect our passion. I respect each and every individual that I've gotten to know in this role. And I know that at the heart of things, we all want to be connected and we all want to be respected. So please just refrain. I know I've had my challenges as well. I'm not perfect. I've lost my temper before. But again, I just ask us to please try to be respectful towards each other. No name calling, because it doesn't do any one of us good. And it takes away from what we're trying to fight for. So thank you very much.
Well said, Brandy. Thank you for that intervention, and thank you for everyone's hopefully agreement that we wouldn't do that. We want to make sure this space is conducive to us like reaching our goal of social cohesion and inclusion. So we'll move on to.
Could I say one thing?
Go ahead, Lily.
I don't know what it's about, as I said, and just hearing it, I'm like, well, what are they talking about? I wasn't there. So for me, it's kind of like inappropriate, because like I'm here to do community, to help the community, and something happened, and I just hear derivatives of yelling, and you're this, name call. I don't even know what the issue is that's causing all this conflict. So I just want to say it's inappropriate. That's all.
Well said, Lily. That's why we're all here, is to move things along. So thank you. Okay, anyone else? Okay, we will discuss. So we have consensus then. I'm going to test for consensus one more time that we will strive to meet with the city on Tuesday. And if the 2025 budget comes up, we will direct it to Planning Committee. We good with that? I'm testing for consensus. Anyone opposed? Seeing none, we're moving forward with that process. Thanks everyone for helping us move forward. The next piece is the response to the city's email. So Brandy, could we open up the email that was sent out? And I know there were observations caught at the last planning committee. I believe Colin and a couple other folks raised some important points that we need to discuss collectively about how to respond, because this is also going to inform our meeting on Tuesday. So could you just open that up?
My apologies. I didn't know I was muted. Can you see my screen?
No,
Mm-mm.
Uh-oh. Oh,
And just a time check, that item went longer. It was supposed to be 5 minutes, so.
I
thank
know.
you, Dini.
I know. Thanks, Dini. We'll do our best to try
Okay.
and get
Can you
through
see it
this.
now?
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. Is someone going to read it, or is everybody going to read it over themselves?
I think we could just maybe just zoom up a bit to make sure the last bottom part is seen. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's good.
It's
So
the same
the
city letter.
yeah, this is a city letter. So the messaging is pretty clear. All 2023 payments will be honored. All 2024 payments will be placed on hold until further notice and investigation has been completed. So that's what the meeting on Tuesday is about. And then we are going to raise at that meeting the 2025 piece. And they said City of Toronto honorarium payments to stakeholders, they will co-chairs. So it's very specific. It's the stakeholder table co-chairs. And I think we wanted to clarify if there's a mistake. So Brandy, do you have any update on that?
Okay, I'm not muted, right? Yeah. Yes, correct. It was only co-chairs are invited to this meeting.
No, we asked at the last meeting
Yep.
whether they meant stakeholder table co-chairs or working group co-chairs, because there's a distinction. We only have two categories of co-chairs, the stakeholders
Right.
table co-chairs and the 4 working groups have co-chairs.
Right. I did not clarify that. That is something I missed.
Okay.
I just lumped all the co-chairs together when I put the request, so I can't give you an answer now, but I can send that out to get the clarification, a response from the city. I'll send it out today.
Yeah, and specifically talk about the third bullet point, right?
Yep.
Is that what they meant? Because
This
that means
is
it's just
2025 here, correct?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, no problem.
Okay. So let's find that out. What the response to that section is. Okay, and then the city recognizes the importance of fostering a safe and constructive environment. But I think in our response, we need to talk about the shaping SDP culture documents and invite them to that process as we've discussed in previous meetings. And I think we built consensus even through this meeting. So that's the bare minimum we should do is invite them to that space to talk about how we are implementing the documents that will shape the SDP culture to help us foster a safe and constructive environment, as they put it in their own letter. So that's something that we could do. And then the other piece that we need to raise is with regards to what's the scope of the investigation, who's doing the investigation, why is the stakeholders table not included in the conversation with regards to any challenges the city might perceive about the SDP, because sometimes communication improves things. So we want to be very clear that we want to work together, but we also have a terms of reference to follow, right? So I think that's going to be one of the important themes that we're going to be, putting out and encouraging them to attend planning committee meetings or to rejoin the table. Does everyone understand that point? So we're doing 2 invitations, one to the Shaping SDP Culture Working Group, and then secondly to the table itself.
Again, I'd just like to say Joel is already going to be reaching out to re-invite city staff to the shaping culture. That was already.
That's being covered, yeah, but we need to then cover the other piece, which is inviting them to the table.
Yeah, that was already determined. And my other question is, my understanding from our last meeting was that there was supposed to be a draft of the letter that we would be looking at this week. So will we be looking at that draft next week instead?
Yeah, I think we need to get some clarity on the 2025 piece. And at the same time, I think meeting on Tuesday will help inform what the response is going to be, Dini.
Yeah, because I just don't want the response to go out without people seeing it.
No. It has to come back to the next planning committee, but we want to maybe even in the next planning committee, they may show up to speak to the planning committee directly. I hope so. We'll invite them to do so, so that we also address the 2025 issue. We can't just be talking just about issues. There's 3 issues at hand. They're going to want to delve in the first 2. The first one not being an issue, it's just the second point, which is this investigation stuff. And then the third point is related to their decision to just arbitrarily not implement the 50K as it was meant. And we actually have documentation. The good news is the internet, everything on the internet lives forever, right? And they can double check that information. What's the role of the stakeholders table? What's the role of the planning committee? What's the role, it goes back to the fundamentals. So I think we're going to be fine.
Can I one thing to say there. When we used to meet with TCHC or the city around something important, often we would do a prep meeting where people would determine who was going to speak to what. It wasn't just invite them and then everybody go off and say whatever the hell they, excuse me, oops. I apologize, and say whatever they want.
Well, I agree with you, but one, we don't have time.
Dangerous waters when we do that. And so if we're going to be having those kind of meetings, I really think it's good to go back to that kind of a practice where we are actually prepared. We know what we're going in to speak to. We know who's going to speak to what issue. And we just come across a little more professional. And we can contain any kind of problems that can arise.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I think that's why we're going to hear them out on Tuesday and then respond accordingly at the planning committee when we meet next on Thursday. Mm-hmm. So there is going to be a process by which we do respond, or we could delay it for another week and just, say, show up to the planning committee. But I think I heard from members of planning committee and we built consensus that we will try the approach as they requested to meet. And then if there's something beyond the 2024 scope, that we bring it back to planning. So I think we're going to be getting a lot of information from the city. We'll be digesting it. We'll be, pondering questions. So we're informed about what their position is, and then we'll bring it back to planning committee. But yeah, go ahead, Brandy.
If I could speak to this, so for any letters going out, so I can send the email, but I'm not allowed to participate in the drafting of the email. So I can send it out once it's done, so I won't be able to participate in the meeting that's drafting of the letter as a response to the city. That has already been communicated to me. So I can send it out to make sure it goes, or you guys can send it out on behalf of yourselves, but I can't do that aspect.
So who instructed you, Brandy, that you can do that?
Well, we can talk offline about that. It's just, you have to understand that my position is paid by the city. So when there's a challenge I know I work for the SDP, it's a complicated role I'm starting to learn, and I'm just trying to tread the waters as carefully and cautiously as I can. But if my salary is paid by the city and the city denies funding to the SDP, I can't send a letter to go against what their outcome. That has to be something sent by the co-chairs. That's understandable, right? And I'm only just trying to be delicate with the situation. I'm not trying to upset the balance. I want to be the best admin coordinator as I can be, but at the same time, my position and my role is one that is funded, and I don't want to blur any lines or ruin this opportunity for a future resident. So I have to maintain a balance, and that is, there's certain things that I cannot do. even as a resident, right? Like if I was just a resident and I was just an SDP member, yes, but I'm also a representative. My role is a representative of the city's investment. So I've got a thin line to tread, and I don't want to upset this balance because, like I said, when everything comes back from the refresh, I hope I can pass this over as of May 31st onto somebody else, a young person who gets to do this job. And I don't want to have this role removed completely or obliterated because the lines are being blurred. And I just want to be aware of that, not just for me, but for the next person that may, the resident that may get this role, because it is a great role, right? So I just needed to clarify that on record.
It's okay, Brandy. I just would like you to know that you're not the first person in this position, or
Yeah.
other community workers and staff had the same thing where they were told they couldn't participate in certain aspects because they were actually working and funded through the city. So this isn't new to us.
Okay. Thank you very much for understanding. I really appreciate it.
No worries, Brandy, but that's what we're trying to change for the better. The city should not be using city funds to muzzle anyone. And I think that's really, really dangerous in community development. You need people to discuss, share the ideas, and not feel a sense of retaliation for the work they do in the community.
I don't feel a sense
There
of
is no muzzling.
retaliation, and I don't feel muzzled. I
Yeah.
speak my, I speak very, very, like I'm you know me, I'm a loud person. I talk. I have no problems, standing up for what I believe in. And if I felt that it was something that I was asked to be quiet about, I would reach out and I would defend that part. But I can see myself where this line is. And I just want to, stay in alignment for just to be the connector and not necessarily someone that upsets the balance.
Yeah. Well, that's a balance that you've put forward, and I think I have no problem with that, right? And I believe it's the role of the co-chair actually to reach out to the city with a response, but planning committee should discuss it, right, and build consensus around it.
Yeah.
We're all in agreement on that, but I just don't like what this precedent says. Like if someone, I'm speaking from the heart, I don't like it. I don't think it works. I think it's a form of bullying and intimidation by someone in authority to do that. I've never seen it happen anywhere. Imagine how many projects are funded by city funding.
That's not so.
No, that's what I believe. I believe I believe there's all these organizations operating in our neighborhood. They get funding from the city, and to muzzle them by saying, listen, if you speak out against the city, there'll be consequences to your funding or your position.
That wasn't told to me, Waleed.
But that's how I feel about it.
You're overreacting to what she said.
I'm not. Listen, nobody has muzzled me. Nobody has told me. To be honest, I felt in the beginning that I didn't even really know where the line was. And as I learned, you get out there, you experiment, you cross the line, you get told, okay, that's not really your role. Like it's a learning.
No, I can tell you when the line was crossed. The line was crossed, Brandy, when you were told to send an email that the planning committee did not have an opportunity to discuss or deliberate over to every member of the stakeholders table. That is crossing the line. That is abuse of power. That is unacceptable.
But I send out all emails that the
you sent it out from within the SDP or from also, but basically like asking people to just receive it without having the opportunity to talk about it. You're causing. It's almost like using SDP staff to cause reputational damage for the SDP, right? Like that's not acceptable in my opinion.
But I'm asked to send out documents all day long, and I don't necessarily, unless like I remember,
So if I was to ask you as a partner to send out an email that was very, against our guidelines or stuff like that, I would assume you'll say no, I'm not going to do that, right? And in my opinion, like that document, especially that email that went out, which we just read. Speaking to there was so much inaccuracies. There is so much accusations instead of having an email that will go out collectively and say, listen, we've heard this complaints, here's how we went about dealing with it. That could have been a different approach.
I
Right? So it
hear
depends.
that.
It depends whether you want to build the SDP or you want to, undermine the SDP. And I feel like that actually happened with that. But that's my personal opinion.
Right.
But I see Deanie wants
But
to
I
speak.
was not muzzled in any way. I'm asked of my opinion. I give my opinion when I'm allowed, when I feel comfortable to, or when it's required. But I am, like I said, nobody has muzzled me. Everyone allows me to speak my opinion. I am just
Good.
trying to, I
need
really
that.
want to see to be honest, I would really love to see the city and the SDP back together, because I'll be honest with you, this role is challenging because of that broken down relationship. And the fact that it's growing more toxic, it makes it more challenging for the person in this role. There would be no line if everybody was at the table. These things happened before my arrival. I just have to learn how to survive in this chaotic situation where we are here. So I'm just trying to not alienate myself as a person, as a resident, as a SDP staff, but also as someone that is funded by the city. I have a line, and I'm not the only one, and so will the next person. So we all got to be mindful that we all have to answer to somebody. Everybody has to be mindful of how they speak, what they do, what they participate in, and anybody can be called, and I just want to make sure that that's on record. Like, I have not felt muzzled. I have not felt stifled. I understand that you have opinions. Remember, you're a part of this this longer than me. You have been more impacted and more affected by things, but I don't see it the same way as you because I haven't had those experiences. So I'm going to give you space to have your opinions, and I respect that because I think you're very intelligent. You work hard. I've never seen someone work so hard for community. I compliment you on that. How much you do. I told you, when do you sleep? I asked you that question often because I truly believe you have the power to be a grateful, impactful leader like you are. If the city and the SDP could come together, do you know how strong you would be?
That's what we want, Brandy. That's what we want.
But we can't do it by making accusations, by making comments that we're being stifled. We can't do it by sending emails. We've got to be collective. We got to admit where we make our mistakes, and we've got to just start fresh. Whatever happened, happened. We cannot change it.
Yeah.
What can we do today and moving forward? That's what has to be the conversation. No more name calling, no more accusations, and just support each other. It's going to take some time, but it can be done, and I believe it.
And I'm going to say again, that is a standard of practice that I have experienced from other workers while I've been in the SDP who were not allowed to draft emails responding to city decisions that were made. This is not new. Lindsay had the same thing. Maya had the same thing. This is not new. This is a standard practice that, there's certain things that they weren't allowed to do, so this is not new. And I also want to remind you that you're the chair. You're facilitating the meeting.
Yeah.
All right, hello?
Michael, go ahead. Go ahead, Michael.
So what's the consequence for doing that? What's the consequence for calling the city and talking crap to them and obstructing our community work when we have a process within our structure that we've developed to use, right? To do things. What's the consequence for that?
Yeah, so there's something called that is being developed right now, Levy. It's called an incident report. And then there is a progressive way to try to address conflict is to, look at the root causes. But the Shaping SDP Culture group is actually working on that. So if you're passionate about, finding out more or informing that discussion, you're more than welcome to connect.
No. What I'm saying is,
do we have a speakers list?
Process in place already, right? For conflicts, and somebody goes above that and decide, you know what? I'm gonna just write the city a letter, and we already developed something for that. So what is the consequence for that?
We haven't discussed that.
Sending some letter to the city.
There has been none. Some people get told off. Some people don't.
Michael,
hello?
go ahead.
Okay. So I was originally going to say that whoever writes our response letter should say it's on behalf of the planning committee, not the co-chair or the staff. I mean, I do find this a little bit strange, the way the staff is being, related between the city, the trustee, and the SDP, and the role of the various parties are sort of problematic, and this has nothing to do with the staff. The staff is just fine. It's the role of the various parties that are a bit strange, but I suggest we just accept that for the purpose of this, and if the letter can be sent by somebody else, but whoever sends it should send it on behalf of the planning committee, not co-chair or anything else. It should be clear once we agree on the letter, it should come from the entire planning committee. That's my suggestion. On the other issue of, what happened with writing to the city, being part of an organization does not muzzle you either, right? A person. They can represent themselves on the one hand and the organization on the other. So the real issue, I think, with what was written to the city is the context and how it happened, and maybe the lack of understanding and various things. But it's not a question of rights and wrongs and consequences. There can be no consequences for people speaking on their own behalf to another party. That does not call for consequences. Or the term consequences is really inappropriate. What it should be is response. There's no such thing as a consequence. A consequence is something that happens, by itself. We're not talking about a consequence. We're talking about a possible response that we would take to somebody else having done something. That's not a consequence. It's a response. So let's get our language correct. And I don't think that there should be a response in that case. And I don't think we should euphemistically call responses consequences, that they are responses taken by somebody. And I don't think we should be taking actions based on that. Now, is there a conflict resolution process? Yes. But that does not tie people's hands. We want people to participate in the conflict resolution process, but we cannot tell people they're not allowed to communicate. We want to create a situation where people will understand the consequences of their communication and will understand that maybe their own understanding of the situation shouldn't have led to some communications, but this is not a case for responsive actions, and let's not confuse an action deliberately taken and call it a consequence. A consequence is something that happens beyond your control.
Okay, thanks, Michael, for that. I think we have a proposal with regards to making sure that the response is on behalf of the planning committee. I think that's our practice in the past, so that's a good reminder, Michael. So if folks want to speak to that, please also do so, and some guidance on word consequence and response. Miguel, you're next, and Dini.
Yeah, I'm gonna say that on this letter by the city by Richard, he is punishing everybody except, everybody, which is not right, because that was not the intention, was to align the Regent Park Safety Network with the rest of the SDP tables. I believe that I acted on the intention of raising awareness about the political control or over control of TCSC on this particular working table. They don't seem to, or they're reluctant. Let's put it this way: they're reluctant to understand the FCP, mainly because they are being influenced by other long-term members of the SDP who have been there like for over 10 or 12 years. I don't know. I was there back in 2012, but I decided not to continue since it was so much. There was no neutrality. It was more like blessing the work of the police at the time when they were going into TCAC buildings and they were carding our residents, police carding, and that is the reason why I didn't want to continue blessing that activity. So, as I said again, it was only intended to address the SDP, the Regent Park Safety Network, who are reluctant to change their ways based on the influence of long-term residents at this table and a TCSC staff that is clueless about it. Thank you.
Thank you. And we're spending a lot of time on this, imagine, instead of talking about what really matters, right? So this is such a...
Yeah, but I had to defend myself for all the accusations that are being thrown at me.
No, I understand, Miguel. I'm just saying this action by the city to just send this email, look how much time we're spending on it, right?
Yeah.
Instead of collaboration on applying the terms of reference so we could succeed, right? But we got Dini next, and then we'll move on. Go ahead, Dini.
Yeah, I just think, we've got a very bad problem here when, some people does something and they get in trouble for it, and then somebody else does the same thing, they don't get in trouble for it. Like we got to figure out what we think is acceptable and what we think is not acceptable and stick to it, because we don't practice that. And, and we've got to be honest, it has been people having conversations with people in positions of power that has caused a lot of the problems that we have right now. Like, this is a problem. People speaking on behalf of groups without actually being the group without the group's knowledge. And this kind of stuff has been going on. It's messy and it's caused us a lot of problems. And we really need to tighten up how we're doing things and how we're communicating with people in positions of power.
Yeah,
it's not okay.
But they say community development work is messy because they are important balance you have to strike of
but I think
representing the will of the group.
Like, let's not pretend, Waleed, that it hasn't cost us.
I think we have been able to make a very good case as an SDP that investments like this work.
It's cost.
I think we have folks who are in support of it because of the evidence.
It's cost us funding opportunities. It's cost us staffing opportunities. It's cost us participation. It's cost us partnerships. Let's not forget that it has got an impact and that
the people who've chosen to be involved with the SDP in other ways, right? But we need people at the table. I think that's the goal. We need the city back at the table. We need TCC back at the table so we can do way more. But we've been able to prove that you can't shut down a neighborhood table.
And we need to own our part. We can't pretend like we're like this innocent group of people who never do anything to cause any problems. It's not true.
Whatever problems have been caused.
Oh, come on.
And you've got to realize that, this is why it's important to support this type of spaces, because it's learning that happens on how to better be neighbors and how to actually achieve that goal of social cohesion and inclusion. I don't think we should abandon that goal because things are challenging. I think we should reflect on why we're able to accomplish certain milestones in comparison to other neighborhoods, but also, what are the real challenges now, right? And I actually feel like this is going to be an opportunity with the investments coming into the neighborhood for us as a social development plan to grow and engage more residents, like we discussed, seniors, youth, but also go through other folks that want to come together to do important work. And our goal is to ensure that the funding and those opportunities exist. So let's see what they have in mind and why this. Let's have that important discussion and talk about the big elephant in the room. So why the city is not at the table, and how can we work together to make sure that everyone's at the table. So we'll have that discussion. The good news is people want to talk, so let's talk. Okay. Michael, is there something you want to say? Can we move on to the next item and have a draft for a response at the next meeting after that meeting, if it's confirmed by Brandy, for Tuesday? Is that okay, Brandy?
First, that's not a problem.
Okay, so what's the next item? Go from the response. Was it announcements, Brandy, or there's something else? We got 8 minutes left. Sure.
We now have the placement students item.
Placement. Okay, so Sophie, I think came earlier, left, so I'll be checking in tomorrow with our placement students. But basically, we have 2 placement students that are going to be supporting the work of the SDP. So they're from the University of Toronto, through the School of Cities. So I just want to make sure that folks, introduce themselves at committees or at initiatives from the SDP. So just want to bring it up to everyone's attention. And they've been very inquisitive about the working groups. So I'm hoping that the working groups will resume. I know Ramadan community building isn't meeting. And Brand has been helping us be organized by sending out upcoming meetings of the working groups or committees. So I'll make sure they're brought up to speed. And Brian, do you have anything you want to say about the placement students and your interactions so far?
Yeah, they're actually an incredible group of young people that are taking all different programs. They are very passionate about community. I enjoyed talking with them. I learned about, their interests, why they're passionate about what they do and what type of focus they want to bring into the SDP. I honestly think they're an incredible group of people, and I think that if orientated well, and given the opportunity to be supported and empowered, they're going to be the next generations of leaders, boy, because they're really, really awesome people. And I look forward to working with them because they're really awesome. And thank you for that opportunity, Waleed. I appreciate it.
No worries. And they're there to help, right? So, especially when the stakeholders meeting is coming up, let's make sure they support the group.
Yes.
Okay. All right. So that's the last item. We're almost at 7 o'clock.
Well, one more
Anything? Go ahead, Levy.
I missed you all at my show on Saturday for International Women's Day. I look forward to 1 or 2 of you coming out the next time.
All right, well, you know what? I'm going to do my best to come out.
Yeah, absolutely.
So much the reminder.
You can't just have work and not play, everyone.
True. Maybe we need more play. That's what's the problem.
I love play.
Do you know how many projects you have to launch next month?
I work and play, right? Work is play for me. Music is just so lovely, right? Recording, everything. I recorded a song yesterday. You guys must come out and see me. Join my page.
Yes. Send me that link right now, hon, and I'll join your page.
Conscious. You can't forget that.
I can forget a lot of things. So just
Live by conscious, my darling.
okay. I will send you an email.
All right. That's what I need. Yes. All right. Sounds good.
All right.
Happy weekend.
Was there an agreement on the date of the stakeholders table?
No, we're
Yeah,
waiting
we
for
said two
Fareed.
dates. Yeah, for 2 dates, right, Brandy?
Correct. I connected with Fareed. He had already left the office, so he said he will get back to us tomorrow. I proposed both dates to see if both dates were available, and he'll let us know before end of day tomorrow.
Sounds good. Okay.
And
That'll
what
work.
was were the dates now being considered?
April 24th and April 30th. So Thursday, April 24th, and the Wednesday, April 30th. Same time, same bat channel.
Exactly.
Same bad channel.
You caught that, Deanie?
Yes, I did.
I just aged myself, but it's all good.
That's okay. I'm sitting here in the background singing to myself. There ain't no flies on us.
It's funny. Okay, my friends. I think we had a
Okay.
good meeting. It's
Thank
almost 7
you.
o'clock. Any other announcements? Anything that people want to say? And just quick reminders, maybe, Brandy, about our meetings next week.
Yep. I'm going to send out a reminder I'm going to do it at 2 weeks in time and then send out the week reminders in advance. So I'll do it for 2 weeks, but I'll release them a week at a time.
Okay, and thank you so much for all the work you're doing, all the support you're offering us. We appreciate it. And we hope to be successful in our meetings with the city to make sure that this role continues beyond May.
Yeah.
After that announcement was made at the planning committee. So thank you so much, everyone. Thanks for
Thank
being
you
here.
so much.
I appreciate you all for doing this, right? For standing up for our community. I just want to say that, right? I know it's
you.
redundant, but I'm new here. And if you guys weren't here, I don't know what I would do if these meetings were called. So I'm really grateful for all of you to be here and be part of our
We're
community.
glad you come and joined us because it's been hard getting new people to join us. So thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
For being here.
That's
Love
beautiful.
all around.
Yeah, and hopefully we'll grow. We'll have more people join us and support this important work. Okay, my friends, thank you
All right,
and have a
thank
lovely
you,
evening.
everybody.
Back to you, Brandy.
All right. Take care. Have a good night.
Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Please follow us on all our social medias, and for more information, please visit our website.